What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Figure Whack Podcast. I'm your host, Gideon Hertz, and I'm coming to you on a Friday right before Georgetown plays Friday night at the Garden in the semifinals of the Big East tournament. There is nothing quite like a Big East tournament run, and I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd get it from this team, but here we are after Georgetown knocks off DePaul in the first round of the Big East tournament, and then last night, just an absolute masterclass against Villanova to knock off the third seed Villanova Wildcats after a surprise season from Villanova. Georgetown takes them down in the Big East tournament quarterfinals, and they will play UConn tonight. And we have to pod. It has been a tough year for Georgetown, tough year for Georgetown fans. Get a little bit of joy here from this one. And really, there is nothing quite like the Big East tournament and nothing quite like wins in the Big East tournament. And we've got you covered with a little bit of we'll do mostly a breakdown from the Villanova game because it was that magical. That great of a game certainly deserves a second look. Preview a little bit for the UConn game to get you ready for that game tonight. It'll be Friday night at 8 or 8:30. I forget the exact time, but if you are listening to this pod, when that game is. And we will have all of your coverage here as you need it. So I do want to talk mostly and just kind of run down the Villanova game. I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. And again, after a rewatch, I have even more, as well as some big picture thoughts and a little bit of a preview for UConn. My biggest question going into this Villanova game was, can they take advantage of Villanova's lack of size without Hodge? Villanova already a sort of undersized team with just Brennan and Hodge up front for the most part. They've got Pierce, who comes off the bench, doesn't play a lot, but they are certainly lacking in size. And that's where Georgetown, I thought, with their bigs might have an advantage. And it played out that way for sure. And just thinking about how does Georgetown attack Villanova and their pretty small but solid guard lineup, all of that. And it was just a really, really great game plan from the Hoyas in this one. I'll also just give an early shout out here before we do our full rundown, because this will pop up a lot. But Gus Johnson and Bill Raftery on the call. Love Gus Johnson calling a Big East tournament game, but my God, Gus and Bill were horrible. I mean, just terrible in this one. It might be time for Ralph to hang it up, and Gus has either got to call more basketball or let it go. This 2-3 games a year and then the Big East tournament, quarters and semis and final, is not cutting it for Gus. He was not on his A game, and Raft, as he always is just a Villanova stan. I don't even know why I guess it's like a Jay Wright thing. It goes back to Raftery and Jay Wright, but my God, this was brutal. And it's one of those things that if it were a loss, man, this would really, the way this game was called by them would be a real problem. But in a win, it's just more kind of funny than anything. As I go through here, there'll be some moments that I just pull out because there's absolutely no way to overlook these. Let's run through this one and pick out some key notes that I saw. I always look at that first play in the game and the first play and a half as well. And this one kind of told the story. They go to a high pick and roll. There's a really, really tough pass on the roll to Juice, who isn't able to catch it. The action is there, the execution isn't, and they start with a turnover. And turnovers were story of this first half for sure, part of the story of the game. But it was an encouraging set that they were looking for that middle ball screen, pick and roll, and then the feed into Juice. It was just a bad pass. Then their first actual bucket, again, high pick and roll with Julius Halaifanua. Gus struggled with Julius's name on this one. Really seemed like the first time Gus said the word Halaifanua was when he called out his first bucket, which tough. But Julius cleans up the glass on an offensive rebound. Space was open in the middle of the floor all game, and Georgetown early on were exploiting it and going to that middle ball screen. Then just another shutout shout out to Gus for mistaking Caleb Williams for Bryce Perkins. First of all, not a player. Bryce Perkins, not a person who exists on either team. Second of all, Bryce Lindsey and Tyler Perkins are two players who play for Villanova. So wrong team, not a player. Gus 0 for 2 in his early calls on this one. You get a 10-3 Georgetown run with a finish from Jay Will off kind of a side pick and roll, and then a lefty finish from Caleb that was really nice. Georgetown looked like they had kind of settled in a little bit early in this one, despite some turnovers. 10-3 run was encouraging, and they had a couple of these runs throughout the game as they got ready. And then Raftery, another great one here, said Caleb Williams from Sidwell and Friends. That one doesn't hurt anybody. It's just hilarious that he tried to call Sidwell Sidfield. Shout out Raft on that one. Maybe time to hang it up. But at the under 16 in this first half, there's a really bad stretch. They got the shots. When they did get shots, they were fine, but most of those possessions were ending in turnover. They had 6 turnovers in the first 8 minutes, and almost all of them unforced. It wasn't an insane amount of ball pressure from DePaul. But just not a great stretch, and obviously getting called out by Raftery and Gus Johnson. For sure, I thought this was deserved. I think they had a lot of unforced errors there. Tyler Perkins, actual Tyler Perkins, not Bryce Perkins or Bryce Lindsey. Tyler Perkins comes down and knocks down a free throw line jumper, which was a shot that Villanova was getting all night, and certainly something that Georgetown looks like they were comfortable living with. They were playing their pick and roll defense in a deep drop all night. I, for one, am adamantly against playing drop in college basketball, or at least that far of a drop. In most cases, I just think like that's the one shot that every guy can hit, and I'd rather force most of these guys to make plays out of the pick and roll. But it certainly seemed to work in this one, and it was just notable that early on, Villanova looked like they were more comfortable taking this shot that Georgetown was giving them in that pull-up floater zone or free throw line jumper. And Tyler Perkins knocks one down. Vince comes in at this point and has just a bad miss, forcing it on a turnaround over the right shoulder. Little bit of a harbinger of Vince maybe not in this one totally. And we've seen this at times when he just doesn't have it early in the game, but figures it out later on. Spoiler alert, in this one, he did not figure it out. And that was a potential huge issue that Georgetown overcame for sure. Georgetown goes zone at this point in the first half. That zone still bothers me. It's just not very effective. But the goal, I think Cooley mentioned this in his halftime interview coming off the court or in one of the huddles, but they were switching up their defenses just to try and give them different looks. And that's fine, I guess. I just, they give up that corner three quite a bit in that zone, and Villanova was just not taking advantage of it at all. So they do go zone, but it doesn't hurt them. I would love to see them stick to man-to-man as much as possible, though to their credit, I think they played zone in spots to mix up the defenses and give Villanova a slightly different look, and it seemed to work. Jalen Fort gets an offensive rebound off of a Mac miss, and I point this out because he was just a monster on the glass, particularly in this one. Didn't score a lot, didn't play a ton, but when he did, he was really, really big and came up with a couple of big plays. And they needed some of these rebounds to just reset the clock and to run clock. Coming back down, this is Vince just smoking a dunk. Gets the ball from Jay Will, a nice pass deep in the lane, spins over his right shoulder and just loses the ball off of his left hand. That was concerning to me. That's one of those where you're just like, yikes, maybe Vince just doesn't have it tonight. And at that point, if you're thinking Vince doesn't have it, the alarm bells are going off for me, for sure. As I was watching this, I was like, if they don't have Vince in this one, I don't know that they have a shot, because they need to be able to take advantage of that center matchup. And to this point, Juice had been solid, not great, but very solid. And you think, all right, the formula for Georgetown is Juice establishing a little bit of a rhythm, some nice offensive rhythm, but Vince coming in and really asserting his will down the stretch, particularly. And with Vince just like not having it at all, he just looked completely out of sorts. I was really concerned. Lindsey comes down and hits a really nice three. But then Mac, right back, responds makes a tough three off of a pump fake and a flyby. I noted this because it's just a really big shot that, we've noted that Mac has not always made the big shots. And in this one, he made a couple of them. This one was really big because they needed it to end an 8-0 run from Villanova. And it was a tough shot that I thought had no shot of going in, but it did. Georgetown down 8 over in with under 6 minutes to go, and Julius starts to take over here. So this is when, you start to feel Vince doesn't have it. It's going to have to be Julius. And we don't have a lot of evidence that Julius can assert the dominance that Vince has over the season, though he's certainly played well in spots. But Julius starts to take over, and this was an absolute masterclass from Julius. We'll talk about it for sure, but starts with the free throw line jumper. Again, they were getting that off of the pick and roll, the short, just everything off of that high middle ball screen with tons of variations. It was absolute just destruction for Villanova in that action all night. He gets the free throw line jumper, easy shot for him. Then he gets an offensive rebound and is fouled, makes 2 free throws, then another free throw line jumper, then a really, really nice dish off of the same action with J. Will in the corner. He misses the 3 there, but it's just good action. And what this indicated to me is that not only was Julius feeling it offensively with his touch, but he was seeing the floor really well. And this comes back later in the game where he had some really, really great passes out of that. Meanwhile, Villanova, while this is happening, Villanova goes scoreless for 5 minutes, which broadcast didn't really talk about. They talked about, Villanova missing shots, but Georgetown forced 7 straight misses and held them scoreless for 5 minutes. And this was a turning point. You look up, the Georgetown ends this half with a, up 4 after playing really bad. I mean, they just did not play well. And you think, well, how are they here despite turning it over 10 times in the first half, not playing great? It was their defense and the fact that they held Villanova scoreless for long stretches of time, including this 5-minute stretch from just under 7 minutes to just under 2 minutes. Villanova really struggled to score. They did not get any second chances. And Georgetown, to their credit, played really, really tough defense. Mac hits a bailout 3, and Raftery again here. I think it was a screen, either Vince or J. Will, and he says, "Ooh, that's an offensive foul." It wasn't. It was a guy flopping. I think Vince was standing there for an hour before on a screen, and I think it was a Caden Lewis just kind of didn't see it and was surprised by it, threw his head back, and he got. But Raft was looking to get got. He wanted to get got in this one. He was all in for Villanova for sure. Then late in this one, you get the Kayvon banked 3 and 1. We're gonna have to call that a 4-goal. It's not a 3-goal. It's a 4-goal. An absolute just incredible shot. I thought no shot that's going in. He banks it in, makes the and 1 free throw, and just somehow Georgetown's up 4 because they have a couple of these timely plays, a couple of these timely shots, and played really solid defense. We go to the second half. Great offensive set on their first possession. That's a dribble handoff with a little bit of a Spain action, which is a screener to get Julius a lob at the rim, and Mac with a really, really nice read and really nice pass to Julius right off the bat. And that is absolutely tells you the story of the game, and particularly the story of the second half, that Georgetown just killed Villanova in their ball screen action. Then you get a really big play that I think is going to go probably overlooked, but on the defensive end, Georgetown's scrambling a little bit. Caden Lewis gets a wide open look in the corner, but J. Will recovers and forces him to record scratch a little bit. He pump fakes, doesn't like the shot, and then ends up taking a really, really bad fall away scoop shot after trying to drive middle on J. Will, but Jeremiah Williams stays square on him. This was to me, a small play that you're not going to look at, but indicates just how locked in Georgetown was defensively, and a little bit of that identity coming back for Georgetown of, we're going to force you to take the toughest shot possible. And you want to get that easy, cheap three off of some rotation, but we're going to run you down and then force you into a shot that you are really uncomfortable with. And Jay Will just looked like the bigger, stronger, more experienced player there. And it was a incredibly, maybe not important in the grand scheme of in points scored, but he takes away a wide open three, forces him into a really tough shot. Georgetown gets the rebound, and it just kind of set the tone. Julius comes back down and hits a floater. And again, there were so many of these actions where defense and offense connected, and it all started with the defense. And I just thought that play really, really stuck in my head. Then you get a hard runner from Isaiah, a little bit of a broken play with Jeremiah Williams kind of dribbling into the paint. He loses the ball a little bit. It hits off of Brennan's shin, which is not a kickball and is only notable because they called a kickball later in the half on the exact same type of play where it hit off of Williams's shin. But it notable as well because as Jeremiah Williams kind of snaking the screen into the middle, Raft for some reason is saying, where are you going with that? And on the loose ball that then ensues after it hits Brennan's shin and he picks it up and tries to throw it ahead, sort of flops. He just throws his head back, and Raft again got fooled and said, he got fouled, which again is not commenting on the game the way that I think you should be, but also he didn't get fouled. And it ends in this Isaiah Abraham runner in the lane that 2 points, great result. But I just wanted to shout this out because Isaiah didn't have a lot of, didn't fill up the box score that much, but he was excellent in this one, particularly defensively on Caden Lewis. We'll talk more about that. But just a shout out to Isaiah Abraham, who had a nice play here, but was all over the floor, particularly defensively. And they do not win this game without Isaiah Abraham, even though he only scored, I think, 2 in this game. Then you get a nice backdoor pass from Julius to Mac, again off of the middle ball screen with J Will, and Mac is going backdoor. Julius finds him. This was after Isaiah and Caleb forced another possession off of an offensive rebound. Neither of them came down with this one, but they forced Villanova to sort of hit the ball out of bounds just with putting pressure on the rim to grab an offensive rebound. A really just great effort on the boards from this team. And Isaiah and Caleb in particular didn't grab all of the rebounds. I think Caleb only had 3 or 4, but was creating the opportunity for offensive rebounds and was really good defensively on the boards as well. Then you get Julius absolutely trucked and nobody sees it. Villanova comes back down and gets fouled on their shot, but Julius is down and this looks rough and it did not look good initially. And then when they give you the replay, he gets absolutely body checked. Cooley talks to Julius because I don't think anybody saw it. And Julius tells him exactly what happened. I was running down the lane. The guy full forearm checked me in the ribs. And Cooley appeals rightfully for the review for a flagrant foul, which it absolutely was. It's a full body check. And just interesting note in the way that both Raftery and Gus described this. Gus rightfully calls it a forearm shiver to the ribs. Good shot, clean shot. Yes, he got him clean. He got him good. Forearm shiver to the ribs. That's one way to call it. I'd call it a body check. Raftery calls it a push. Wasn't a push, Raf. That was a check. And Raf says, no, there's no flagrant there. Clear flagrant foul, obviously. And they correct it and call it a flagrant one, which it was. It's not a basketball play. Forcible contact off the ball. It's just a clear flagrant one. I have no idea what these guys are looking at that they're thinking that's not. I mean, I guess in the old Big East, you could get away with that. Maybe they're thinking that, but we haven't allowed this type of play in maybe 10 years. And just notably, Raftery couldn't let this go into the next play after all the free throws are gone. And I'm not even going to talk about how confused Bill and Gus were about who was shooting free throws and why, and who was in the game and who wasn't. Just an absolute disaster class from the two of them, particularly Raftery. But Raftery couldn't let this go, and he his last word on it, I don't know. You can't legislate intent, so I don't know how you can give that a flagrant foul. Nobody's asking you to legislate intent on that one. In fact, the intent is irrelevant. He forearm body checked him away from the ball. That's a flagrant one, Raf. Not the intent doesn't matter there. We're actually not focused on why he did what he did. It is what he did. After all of that, Vince turns the ball over at half court, just didn't have it. It's 44-42. Georgetown leading with Villanova coming. They've got 16 points off of 14 turnovers. This to me is a turning point in the game, or a potential turning point, where at this point it's pretty clear. I don't know if you can play Vince the rest of this game. You're going to have to go with Julius, and maybe Julius is hurt. It starts to look bleak here that Villanova starts making their run, and it seems like it's going to be like the tide is turning. Malik dribbles the ball around for 24 seconds on the shot clock and then throws up a prayer and makes it, much to Raftery's displeasure. Credit that's just another tough shot that Georgetown absolutely needed. Perkins comes down and responds and puts a three back up to keep it to a 2-point game. And then Vince calls his own number and takes a really ill-advised shot from the middle of the key on a post up that just wasn't there. And again, at this point, you're just like, well, it's going to have to be Julius, or I think we're in trouble. Credit to Ed Cooley. He comes back immediately with Julius, and they go right back to the screen and roll. A really nice little dribble handoff and get right off of that middle ball screen, middle handoff action. And Williams finishes at the rim with the left. Raftery is complaining this entire time, too much bouncing, which, yes, there were times when the guards were dribbling the ball and over dribbling, but there was a point to it that I'm not sure why Raftery didn't recognize that part of the game plan was to get the guards into these middle ball screen actions, snake them into the lane, and get secondary actions off of it. And it ended up working. And so, yes, there were absolutely times when Jeremiah and Malik and others were over dribbling, mostly those two, but over dribbling. But for the most part, there were a lot of this was intentional and was part of the game plan to get the ball into those spots by dribbling it. And I'm not sure why I know why Raft wasn't clued into that. He maybe a little late for him on this one. Maybe don't want him calling 2 games in a row. And also, anytime you get rafted with calling a Villanova game, he can't help himself. Right after this, you get the Julius dish to a cutting Fort and a dunk. This is when you start to see Juice is not just scoring the ball, but he's really seeing the floor. He saw this one a mile in advance. This was, as soon as he spins into the lane and sees the double come, he notices Fort, and Fort even takes a second to initiate the cut, and Julius sort of like looks him over and gives him the ball, and it's just a really, really nice play from Julius and a great move from Fort. Askew hits a 3 to put Villanova down to keep them to 2. And I'm going to tell you, I think this is the best thing that happened to Georgetown is Askew making that shot. Not that he wouldn't have kept shooting anyways, but he really, really thought it was Devin Askew time after this. And I will note as we go down the stretch here where Georgetown was able to take advantage because Devin Askew just kept putting up shots. You get the under 16 timeout here, I believe, and get the report of Cooley sort of settling his troops, telling them to enjoy the moment, be the toughest team in this building, and just a shout out to Cooley doing what Cooley is best at. You can have some concerns about how he's coached this year, the team that he's put together, all of that stuff. But in the moment, he knew exactly what his team needed. They needed to settle down and they needed to play tough. And just a shout out that when Cooley's at his best, he is really a great leader of this team. Askew immediately comes back and shoots another 3 that starts his stretch of 0 for 1. And we'll count these down, but 0 for 1 after making one at the 12-minute mark. Again, he thought it was Askew time, and it definitely was not. Mack gets a wide open 3 and misses it, but Fort gets the rebound. It's just another huge offensive rebound that resets the possession, gets them another possession. They limited the possessions in this game, played a lot slower than I think Villanova would have liked to. And every single possession, every time they touched the ball, they were getting the shot clock down to 20, 25 seconds or less. And in some cases, as I said, there was over dribbling. They were not getting the shot that they wanted quickly enough. But for the most part, on average, this was their game plan, and they executed it really well. Off of this rebound, Jay Will rejects the ball screen and gets that floater on the baseline. All of this comes off of the pick and roll, and they were just punishing Villanova so much in that pick and roll action in the middle of the floor that all of the variations off of it just started to flow. In this one, they show the pick and roll. Jay Will rejects the ball screen and gets into a floater zone off the baseline and makes a really nice shot. Down at the other end, Julius comes up with his best rebound of the year, and it's notable because, again, this team needed to rebound in this one. Brennan and Villanova love to get to the offensive boards, and Georgetown controlled them. Julius grabs the one-handed rebound as he's fending off Brennan, stringing these possessions together on both ends where they're limiting Villanova to tough shots, getting rebounds, and getting good shots on the other end. Askew pulls up for another three, another just quick pull-up three. He's 0 for 2 since the 12-minute mark, and Georgetown's up 50. Then you get a Vaughn pick and roll, his turn for the middle ball screen pick and roll, the tough righty finish going left. I noted this again. It's a big bucket. It's again late in the shot clock where they needed to get a good shot. They get Vaughn going to the rim. I like when he's attacking the rim and not just settling for the three, particularly when he's able to sort of straight line drive for the most part. But he also looked calm. And I think this is the first indicator, looking back, that something special was coming from him. He looked calm. He looked in control. We should have known the 3-goal was coming. Askew, then baseline pull up jumper. He misses that one. He's 0 for 3 at this point after his last make of the game, 58-51. Then just a really, really great set off of the middle ball screen action. They run a little dummy dribble handoff to Mac with Julius at the top of the key, and then a dribble handoff to Jay Will, an immediate roll, pocket pass from Jay Will to Julius, and he finishes through the contact and one. Juice is officially on the loose at this point, 20-7. You get Juice screaming. You get some emotion from him. Absolutely just a great set. This was deep in the bag of variations that they were running off of this middle ball screen action that was just killing Villanova. And Julius with the cherry on top with a great finish off of the pocket pass that Jay Will wants to throw a lot, has thrown it a lot, not always successfully. This one was an absolute dime. Then right after that, you got Juice missing an open three off of a pick and pop. Again, the middle ball screen action. This time he pops instead of rolls. Villanova's in a deep drop trying to figure out how to defend this, and it's wide open. Man, I wanted this one for Juice. That would have been an absolute just banger for Juice. And I'll just note, when Julius starts to knock down these threes more consistently, and I do think it is a when, not an if, he is going to be an absolute monster offensively. But on this shot, this is the one that Fort keeps alive and just doesn't try and grab it. He knows he's not going to be able to grab it, but he just out jumps everybody and bats it way back to the half court line. Mac keeps it alive. Julius grabs it. Again, just taking time off the clock and extending possessions. And this was an absolutely classic Fort play. He was great in this, making those types of athletic plays that nobody else on the team can make, nobody else on the floor. They end up not scoring off of that reset, but they take time off the clock and get another good shot. Then you come down and there's the kickball that wasn't, again, same exact action that they call they don't call a kickball on the other end. They call a kickball. On this end, it goes off of Fort's shin. Jay Will's shin. So they get a baseline out of bounds. Villanova gets a baseline out of bounds. They run, I guess, a play for another baseline pull-up three from Askew, who, surprise, surprise, he misses it. He's 0 for 4 since his last make in this one. And this gives the jump ball, Vaughn, and I think it was Perkins. And there's something about a jump ball with Vaughn, and he does not give up the ball. Vaughn in a tie-up is an indication that good things are coming. And immediately after that, you get his first three in the corner there, the Vaughn three goal. You let it fly. Just another great set against the zone. Villanova at this point is saying, all right, we can't guard this middle ball screen in pick and roll or in man to man, so let's go to a zone. They run the middle ball screen again, this time a little off to the side just to have Juice come up, set a simple ball screen for Mac, who steps in. The wing defender has to lift up, and Vaughn running the baseline is set and knocks in his first three goal of this one. Then Lewis comes down, takes a really quick three, another great contest from Jay Will, and you know how this one ends. It's a double three goal. We're officially calling this a double three goal. Vaughn in the same spot, Caleb a nice little step in and dish off, and you've got Georgetown rolling at this point, 67-53. Timeout Villanova. Raft at this point, the let it fly, the three goal, the little three goal from Vaughn. And Ralph says, that's the signal they use. I don't know what it means. You got to let them know what it means. And that means let it fly, bombs away. That's the three goal. You should learn it, Raft. 5 minutes, 30 seconds left. Villanova gets a bucket, 67-55. Start to think, all right, maybe they're making their last push here. Georgetown runs another nice little set against the zone on a top of the key replacement. Caleb gets a deep three that just rims out. It was a great shot. Looked like it was down. I thought it was good action, good shot. But Vaughn goes in and taps it in. And that capping an 8-0 run for Vaughn personally. And just a huge play where Villanova gets an easy bucket down at the other end. Vaughn makes a incredible individual play to answer. Then Villanova scores again, but Jay Will comes down again. They go back to man. Georgetown right back into the ball screen, and it's a pull-up jumper from the free throw line from Jay Will, and he just looks like we're not losing this game at this point. Askew again, a pull-up three. He's now 0 for 5 since his last make. 71-58 at this point. Then you get the little dish from Malik on the back cut from Jay Will on the baseline. The thing that was notable for me, and he did this a couple times, Malik getting into the lane and then playing off of 2 feet. He jump stops, plays off of 2 feet. I think he's stronger and better when he does that instead of trying to fade away. And this was just a great play from Malik. Great pass to a great cut from Jay Will. The two of them had really nice chemistry. One more for good measure down at the other end. Askew pull up three. He is now 0 for 6 since his last make. And Georgetown caps off a 22-9 scoring run over 10 minutes, which officially not a run. That's just a beatdown. That's just a team outplaying another team. I don't think you can call that a run over 10 minutes. That's just winning. And Caleb gets the rebound of the J. Will miss, resets, and that's the game. He gets rewarded with a nice take and finish, and then a 3 goal of his own for good measure. And Georgetown wins this one going away. A lot of really nice pieces to close this one. Just a little note that in clutch time down the stretch, they extend the lead and execute effectively in this one, something that we haven't seen them do a lot of this year. Let's talk a few big takeaways here before we close this out. Just some overarching thoughts from this game. An all-time great game from this team. A really, really fun one to watch. Despite some of the early challenges, despite the turnovers, the second half was a masterclass. Couple of things that stuck out to me here, a few big takeaways that I'll talk about. So my first big takeaway from this one, that's an identity win, which is something that I'd sort of given up on. I think one of the most kind of frustrating, difficult parts of this year for me, but also we've heard from Coach Cooley and others and the team, is that they seem to have lost their identity at some point during this year, of a team that is going to grind out games, play really tough defense, force teams to play their style, get into rock fights, but maintain a level of execution on offense that I think we just haven't seen. And this was that 100 times over. This was a Georgetown team that we thought we would see a lot more of. And to be honest, I'm not sure why they couldn't get to this more often. I think a lot of it comes down to roles and guard play and fitting into the playing within themselves, all of that stuff. But rather than focus on that side of it, I just want to call out that this was, I think, a really solid identity win. They slowed the game down, they limited possessions, they made it tough on Villanova, and just completely put them in the torture chamber on offense again and again and again, and were relentless. Really, it was a relentless effort, and just a masterclass all around. The defense was great all night. Wasn't always perfect. There were some lapses here and there, but they forced Villanova to really Villanova really felt them. They forced Villanova into some bad shots, second guessing. I mentioned the record scratch three that Caden Lewis took, and Jay Will just bodied him up. A lot of rear view contests that are really important in this one. Georgetown again was playing drop coverage, giving up some of those pull up mid range jumpers and some threes. And one of the keys there is that the secondary or rear view contest, where you're contesting coming around the screen and trying to get back to that shooter as they're stepping into their stroke, has to be fast. It has to be in control, and it's got to be really effective. And I thought there were a lot of those that, Villanova absolutely just missed some shots, but Georgetown did not make it easy on them. Even when they were getting an open shot, Georgetown was contesting hard and doing a really, really nice job getting back in front of their guys, and also those rear view contests. And then ultimately limiting to Villanova to one shot on almost every possession was huge. The rebounding battle was just incredibly important. It makes me think that I wonder if starting the Big East tournament against DePaul, that as we saw and we've seen in all three DePaul games this year, it's been an absolute rock fight. The defense has to be dialed up to 11. It seems like it's maybe even a little bit easier to play that style of defense against DePaul because they don't have the game breakers as much. And just the way that game goes, you've got two teams who are trying to kind of play the same way. Maybe starting the Big East tournament against DePaul and obviously getting that win locks them into their identity a little bit more and sort of opens the door to say, all right, this is what we need to be. Here's what it feels like. I wonder if that helped in this one, and maybe it helps moving forward to just solidify the muscle memory of we got to be tough defensively and execute and get good shots on offense. And I wonder if the matchup that they got to begin this was actually a little bit of a blessing in disguise, and that it helped force their identity a little bit. Goes without saying, but we should say it. I thought Cooley was great in this game. Thought it was an absolute masterclass over Willard. I mentioned the game plan. I just, it was really, really well designed and executed, and a little bit of a proof of concept that I think is worth pointing out. It doesn't make up for the rest of the year. It doesn't make up for all of the stuff that came before, but just looking at this, and certainly the Big East tournament as a whole, but this game in particular, I thought Cooley was far and away the better coach in this one. One thing we kept hearing from the broadcast, and also I think Willard mentioned it a couple times, was we're so young, we got to stop playing young, my team looks young, all of that stuff. That's just like such a weird comment to me, because they're actually older on average than Georgetown. I mean, I guess they're young, but they're not that young. You've got two seniors in your starting five, and the five guys that play, you've got two seniors, one junior, one sophomore, and one freshman. And a Caden Lewis, who's in my mind, should have been Big East freshman of the year. Certainly was, Nigel James has been great for Marquette, but I thought a Caden Lewis was the guy. And he, so he's one of the higher quality freshmen in the conference at the very least. And so, I don't know why that was such a focus. It's not an excuse to me that this was a young team. If they didn't, Georgetown is actually on average younger than Villanova, but I thought Cooley came with a really clear plan. Offensively, we talked about it. They ran a high pick and roll or middle ball screen on almost every possession to start their offense, and dribble handoff as well. And then because Villanova just could not stop that. They were getting great looks off of every single one of those looks. And part of that was the guard play, but it was really, really well designed. And they threw wrinkles in throughout that helped Georgetown maintain that dominance and get good shots. They had, the little DHOs, they had the slip screen, the back cuts at times, just really well executed and well drawn up. And then defensively, thought the team was really focused on rebounding the ball, which was going to be a key. Again, without Hodge, Villanova's small, but they're an active rebounding team, particularly Brennett on the offensive rebound, on the offensive boards. And Georgetown was locked in to rebound as a team. There were some guys who I think really, really excelled there. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And they figured out where they wanted to give Villanova shots. And I mentioned this, but Devin Askew, I think, is part of the reason that Villanova loses this game, because he sees a few go in and keeps shooting. And he, I think, is a 35% three-point shooter over his career. He's up to 40% this year. I just don't see any indication that he's that solid of a shooter, or has been over his career at Kentucky and Santa Clara or anything. But he goes 3 for 12 on the night, 1 for 9 from three. I mentioned he goes 0 for 6 down the stretch after making his last shot. So he only made 3 shots, and he didn't make one after the 10-minute mark or 12-minute mark in the second half, and took 6. So he was letting it fly, and Georgetown was pretty comfortable with that. And it helped that he was letting it fly, because it did create a lot of long rebound opportunities, which have kind of been a challenge for Georgetown this year, but they were up to the task, and I thought really well prepared for it. Again, the game plan, just the pick and roll to death, was really well executed, and Julius was great in the short roll off the, in the pick and roll action, taking jumpers, getting to the rim, dishing the ball. It was Julius easily his best game as a Hoya. He was, I think, incredibly locked in. But both the guards were really good. Jeremiah Williams and Malik Mack, even with some hiccups, some turnovers. All of those hiccups and turnovers and my bads, as opposed to just being my bads, they were in service of something. It was clear what they were trying to get to. They were trying to push the envelope on these middle ball screens. They were snaking a lot of those. So coming off of the middle ball screen, snaking the ball and dribbling back into the middle of the lane to collapse the defense even further and find guys coming out of that or get shots out of that. And it caused some turnovers for sure. It caused some loose passes and maybe some loose handles. But for the most part, it was clear that they were trying to get to something, and they were getting to something that was planned and was something that they wanted to force Villanova to defend, a real advantage that they had. So I thought just a really good game plan, and really well executed. And they stuck to that game plan, and ultimately it led to them kind of breaking the game open. I mentioned the rebounding, but you get 10 rebounds from Julius, 7 from Isaiah, 8 from Vaughn. All just really big numbers that you needed gang rebounding from this team. I thought Isaiah, I mentioned this before, but Isaiah's performance in this one was one that most people won't talk about. You won't see it on the box score, but he was great on the glass. And another really good sort of game plan tweak is they put him as the primary defender on Caden Lewis, held him to 5 points. In previous matchups, this had been more of the Caden Lewis versus Malik Mack showdown, and I think they certainly had KJ on Caden at times. But I thought Isaiah's length and sort of physicality was excellent in this one, and forced Caden into some really tough shots, and he took him out of this game. I mean, it was also the difference, I think, between Isaiah and KJ on Caden. There's a lot of differences, obviously. I don't think Isaiah is quite the athlete that KJ is, though I think he's a good athlete for sure. But he's also going to gamble a lot less than KJ is, and he's going to help a lot less. And Isaiah was solely focused on stopping Caden, and he did that. Caden was by far the lowest rated offensive player in this game, except for Vince on both sides. But it was a really effective strategy and executed brilliantly by the player. Isaiah was great in this, knew his role. I'm going to shut down Caden Lewis, and I'm going to grab rebounds, and they don't win without him. Couple final notes on guys. I've mentioned this, but the guards deserve credit. J. Will and Mac deserve a lot of credit. It's been an up and down year, mostly, frankly, down for the guards. As a group, you don't even need to call out individual folks. As a group, it's been a tough year for them. But they played really well together in this game, particularly in the second half. Yes, there were turnovers. Yes, there were issues. But when the ball was in their hands a lot, as the broadcast like to point out, and not give you context as to why the ball was in their hands a lot, which was that the game plan was to exploit that middle ball screen action, and they delivered. I mean, certainly some turnovers early in this game. As I mentioned, Malik Mack hit a couple of really big shots that you absolutely needed to have. Jay Will had some shots coming down the stretch, but was just a monster in controlling the game. I think it's been one of the silver linings of KJ going down is the roles have slightly shifted in that you're playing a backcourt where you've got basically 2 point guards, though, and that has moved Mac to the off ball guard spot. And I think Jay Will has done more of the point guard things that help this team get into actions versus Mac, who's a little bit more of a score first guy. And I think that dynamic has really benefited how the team runs. And it's benefited, frankly, Jeremiah. Clearly, he's been great over the past couple of weeks. And it's benefited Malik, who I think played outstanding in the second half of this game. Really deserves a lot of credit for his control of the game at times and where he was getting his shot. It also has allowed Vaughn to pick his spots, and Vaughn, was great again. He was exactly what you need, playing within himself, and the guard play in this one matched a all-time great performance from Julius, who just you saw the promise in this one. He just came to play. Again, when Vince looked a little shaky and looks like he didn't have it, I thought, well, that's it. I mean, if they can't exploit that matchup, if they can't exploit the center position or the bigs, as they have, sometimes, it's been a strength of theirs all year, but it's been a strength because of the dynamic between Vince and Julius, and Vince a lot of times closing the game really strong. They can't exploit that. I don't know how they win this game. And Julius said, I am going to just take this game over and win this one. And he came to play. He had a 160 offensive rating, 9 for 9 from 2. He only missed 3 shots, and they were threes, and they were all good shots. I mentioned this, but when that pick and pop 3 starts to fall, and it's going to fall, he's a good shooter. He's good from the free throw line. He's good in those mid-range jumpers. It's going to come. He just needs to work on it. When that starts to fall, he is going to be an incredibly dominant offensive player. The sky's the limit for Julius, really. There are some things that he can clean up, certainly on the defensive end. Offensively, he brings you a lot of really high level play, and you saw it all in this game. Once he got really comfortable in that pick and roll and was getting the ball in easy, good spots, this has been the challenge, I think, in some of the guard play that we've gotten, is just getting the ball to the centers, and particularly Julius, in easy to play spots and ways that he can take the ball and run with it. They were able to do that in this game, and it just showed then how comfortable Julius was scoring the ball and making the right play. And more often than not in this one, he made the right decision, and they got a good shot out of it, whether it was a shot for him or somebody else. And it's why they won this game. It's also, an interesting dynamic now that you show up against UConn, and you've got Vince, who didn't play a ton in this game, maybe a little bit fresher, and typically, as you've seen in the previous 2 meetings, this is a matchup for Vince more than Julius. I'm really excited to see what Julius does off of the back of this game. I don't expect it to be the same level, but maybe he's figured some things out, and you can stretch the defense a little bit. But this is more likely than not going to be a Vince game. And one of the things that was so exciting early on, before this team took a little bit of a dive and Vince was out, was the 1-2 punch at center actually looked really good. We went into this year thinking, I don't know if we're going to have the guard play looks really good. I don't know about the center position. Well, that story has completely flipped over the course of the year, that the 1-2 punch at center actually has been better than expected. The guard play, I think, has not been as good as we thought. And now you're in a position where you can really ride that. And I think you got, a great game from Vince against DePaul. He absolutely dominated the second half of that game. You get a great game from Julius in this one. He dominates that one. And now you've got a UConn team where you think it's probably going to be a Vince game. And I'm excited to see how Vince shows up in this one. I think he's going to need to be really effective. They've played UConn tough twice. I think two of their best games of the year outside of the St. John's loss, and obviously this win against Villanova is their best win on the year statistically, and from a KenPom perspective, it's their best one. I just think it's who knows what's going to happen in this game, but you get a chance to play Friday night at Madison Square Garden. That's a great accomplishment for this program and for this team, regardless. And it doesn't excuse or change the season much, but it does. It's worth calling out for sure that this team has put some things together. And, we've said the whole year they can, and I think Coach Cooley said it, we could beat anybody or we could lose to anybody. And we're seeing that right now. And I'm not sure what happens tonight, but I am excited to watch it. I think discipline and defense maybe get you over the top in against UConn, and when you just fell short in 2 games this year, losing by 4 and then losing by 2, maybe a little bit more just execution and quietly. They've been better down the stretch in these games. The last 3 games, they have been good closing these games in a way that they haven't been the rest of this year. And maybe that's enough to get you over the top. It's going to be a tough game against one of the best teams in the conference, if not country, and an excellent opportunity to just go out and leave it all on the floor tonight in the semis of the Big East tournament, which is just not something I thought we would see this year at all. I'll end it with, I put out a call on the Twitter machines asking, how far does this run need to go to change how you evaluate the season or where the program is moving forward? And I will say, I think you can hold 2 things at the same time, that this is an excellent run and it's really positive for the team and program. And this year was still a failure and not good enough and needs to change. So this was more just to spark some thoughts from people, and I'll share those of you who responded here. We've got Title Blue Hoya. I'm happy already. This team is making history and playing some of their best ball in March. I'm with you there. I don't disagree. There's nothing quite like a Big East tournament run. The last one we had was in 2021. Fans, it was incredible, but it was weird and felt kind of off, and just for so many reasons was like, is this good? Yes, of course it's good, but people are wearing masks and there's no fans, and is it real? Now you get the real thing, and going into a Friday at the Garden is as good as it gets in college basketball. That's up there. William E. Donnelly, Tulsa Bill, the run could end tonight, and I would still think the program is making satisfactory progress. They can keep the core together. They should be more mature and win a lot more of the close games next year. I think that's reasonable as well. I think you'd like to see them. I don't think this year has been great, and I'm concerned about the progress that they made, but I think this gives you a little bit of momentum, and I do think there are more paths to being successful next year than we maybe thought. I do think they have to be successful next year, though. Cherry Hoya, in combination with the injuries and close losses this season, already changed. Coaches are doing their jobs and players are improving. Litmus test was how hard they compete past. They've competed all year. I agree. And I think the improvements that we've seen in places has been really, really positive as well. We got 1, 2, 3 fireballs. The turnovers are still really concerning. I agree that the turnovers were bad in this game. I mean, their turnovers they've been one of the better teams avoiding turnovers this year. So I'm not sure what you're flagging there necessarily. Let me check and see what they're down to. They were top 10 in turnover rate at one point. They've dropped obviously now to 115, so pretty substantial drop, and it's been a problem lately as well. But again, I think you got to take context into consideration a little bit, and what those turnovers are kind of indicating or in service of. Yes, they have to cut down on them. It's not a concern for me about the long-term evaluation of this program. MD389 already there, end of the season, best player sidelined with injury. Every reason to have thrown up a dud in game 1. Instead, everyone stepped up, and now we're playing on Big East Tournament Friday. I'm ecstatic also. Eagle, 3 Eagles all around. I'm with you. Doing this without KJ is great. I think it shows a little bit of a proof of concept as well. It gives you a path to what you might need to be successful in the future with this group. There's, and I think maybe that's the thing that changes the most for me is that you see some options with the majority of this group intact. And it, I think, just requires thinking through how do you fill out your guard room and bring in somebody who is maybe a more kind of point guard first instead of a points guard. Matt Kamensky, it already has changed mine a bit. Still overall disappointing year, but when KJ went down, I didn't think we'd win another game. Shows grit that was lacking mid-season. I think tonight's game versus UConn will go a long way in how we evaluate this season. March game mattered more. I think that's absolutely right. I'm not expecting a win tonight, but anything is possible. And if they do win and get to a Big East tournament final, that is in and of itself a huge accomplishment, regardless of what has happened this year. If you said at the beginning of the season this team would be playing in the semifinals of the Big East tournament, I'd be happy. If you said they were playing in the finals of the Big East tournament, I would be really happy and think, wow, we must be a really, really good team. That's not where things have ended up, but still with a chance to have the result of playing in a Big East tournament semifinal and final is a really big deal. Kellen McCaffrey, these two wins are so important, not only for the brand of Georgetown, but also for transfers, knowing that we can win in March. Yeah, I mean, the momentum is real, whether how it translates into other things or transfers or what it means for after the year, I'm not totally sure, but it's definitely real. You feel it. You feel it around the program. I think it's absolutely real, and going on a little bit of a run in a Big East tournament is only a good thing. Drew McGowan, not sure that even winning the next two games would change my feeling about the season overall. It was rough and team often lacked focus in the middle of games, stopped running an offense, took lazy shots that led to fast breaks for the other team. He says, I was ecstatic last night for sure, but there's a ton of work to do. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I don't totally agree with all of those reflections on the team, but I think it's absolutely fair to sort of set these two things aside, this run in the Big East tournament and where the team was before the Big East tournament, which was last in the Big East and not in a good place. And I don't think you need to accept the regular season, but you also have to, I think, be accepting of where they are now. Nicholas says it's great to see, happy for Coach Cooley and team, and it's always cool to beat Villanova, especially because they were heavy favorites. But in this new era of college basketball, you just don't know who's on the team from year to year. Totally fair as well. I think, yeah, beating Villanova is still maybe the best win, my favorite win in college basketball right now. Beating Villanova is always good, particularly when they've got Kevin Willard over there. And you get Raft on the call and just, on the Villanova bandwagon. I am really happy for Cooley and the team. It's been a tough year for them. And, you can be angry about the decisions and how things have gone, but it's been a brutal year for the team and for the coaching staff and for Cooley and for all of the people around the program. They did not expect or think that this was going to be the result, and getting a little bit of fun and winning at the end of the year is great. I'm thrilled for the guys. Emmett Fitzgerald, this season was disappointing overall, but Georgetown basketball is on the way back. New recruits, selected holdovers, and transfers will make for a successful team in 26-27, especially if Vince returns. Big East tourney performance has helped in numerous ways, especially in recruiting and future outlook. No lies told there. I think that's all true. Matt Gross, I think these two wins change a lot, both from a valuation perspective and from a player retention standpoint. Yep, I agree. I think, it gives you, again, a little bit of a proof of concept. Jeff Green for MVP just says, beat UConn. Hell yeah, brother. Beat UConn. Let's have Huskies for dinner. Super Eric Rogers, winner. Let's see, I got one more here from Michael DeRosa, MD The Dream. He says, I think the main thing it does is build momentum. Even if they get waxed tonight, they built momentum and showed that they're still a group together. All that would be forgotten if you start next season slow. All will be remembered if you beat UNC next year. Yeah, I think overall, I agree with this. It certainly builds momentum. And again, to me, it gives you a little bit of a proof of concept for what you might try and do next year, how you might build the team, and whether you are how close you actually are. But I also think you need to look at, as we said on the last pod, like what are the things that you need to do to ensure more consistency. And it allows you to look at those things while evaluating sort of not just everything that went wrong, but also things that went right. And you learn a lot from your mistakes, but it helps to be able to see when things go well, what is working. And building off of those. And so getting a little bit of a blueprint for that, I think is critical. And as always, like I said, it's just a great thing to play deep into the Big East tournament. You are one of four, I think, as everybody's been saying now, it's four of the original charter members of the Big East, as it should be. Georgetown, I think, still has the most Big East tournament wins in the conference. I may be making that up. I think I saw that. And they are 2 wins away from another Big East tournament title. And we're playing with house money now. Hopefully the team is loose. Hopefully they are bought into what their identity is, what they need to do. As I said, they've played UConn tight in 2 games. I don't know whether they're going to play them tight in this one. UConn's really good, but for some reason it seems like Georgetown has been up for these matchups. We have not seen this matchup without KJ Lewis, and that's certainly interesting. I think KJ brings some things that they definitely need in this matchup. He's had some tough plays down the stretches in both of those games against UConn, but overall he's a big piece when you're matching up against UConn. Be interesting to see what they do on Demery. I wonder if they go to Isaiah Abraham on Demery like they did with Caden Lewis. We'll see. I think you play your style, you force your identity, and you let the chips fall where they may. And I feel as good as I have all year about Georgetown's willingness and ability to do that. And I'm just excited to watch it Friday night in the Garden, Big East tournament semifinal with a chance to go to the Big East tournament final. Georgetown and UConn, what could be better? We'll have it all for you here. Hopefully be back talking to you tomorrow after a big win, or we'll break down a tough loss in a frustrating season with a little bit of fun at the end on a run through the Big East tournament. And as always, Hoya Saxa. We'll talk to you soon.